Hi there, Bambaji here to have a look at another gate transit according to the Human Design System. On Sunday morning at just before 1 in the morning, depending on where you are, I'm in England, so it's a GMT for me. The sun transits into gate 17, which is called the Gate of Opinions. This is a gate in the Ajna center. The Ajna is that triangle, second triangle down. And when we have this center open, we can fall into the trap of trying too hard to be sure about things, to convince others that we're sure. We might spend a lot of time and energy defending our opinions, and that can really tie us in knots, especially when we find that our opinions might be completely different the next day. When the transit has passed through, or when we have other information, this could, sort of inform us in a different way. So what do we do about that? Do we carry on defending a position that we no longer really believe in? Or, which is the more authentic option, do we change our mind? If we change our mind, then people might find us flaky. They might think that we're a little bit inconsistent. They might even think we're unreliable. And this is nothing like a judgment that we want to really be on the end of. That doesn't feel comfortable at all, especially if we happen to have a fifth line, which either in our profile or in this 17.5, anything around this, we need our reputation to be kept intact if we've got a fifth line. And so people telling us that we're flaky and inconsistent and unreliable is really not a place we want to be. And so we can end up defending opinions that we truly don't believe in anymore. If the ajna is defined in our body graph, it will be colored in green. And this means that we can be sure of our opinions because we're designed to be that way. We have the mechanic for it. This is a gate in collective circuitry, and it's on the logical side of collective circuitry, which is known as the understanding circuit. Collective circuitry has the keynotes of sharing, and it can be sort of almost likened to the skin of the body when you look at it, because it's all of those channels that are on the outside, if I use my pointer. So all of these channels that are there on the outside of the body graph, of the actual mechanic there. These are the things, it's sort of like holding us together. It's almost a hug, around the whole of humanity, that collective feeling of we're all in it together kind of thing. Logic is all about patterns and formulas, and it's about having doubts, which starts off in the 63 here, if you can see in that small thing in the right-hand corner. We have our doubts in the 63, we have our questions. They get answered in this gate 4, and then they come down into gate 17, where we have our opinions about them. In logic, we have to test our questions and our answers. We test them over and over and over again to find validity in them. And also because we actually want to find the flaws in them so that we can work on those flaws and get rid of them, and we can correct them. Correction is part of this logical circuitry. So we test them, and then we know that they can withstand criticism. And we also know that there's a chance that somebody's going to come along and find a flaw that you hadn't noticed. And then the whole thing will have to be tested and refined and tested again. Gate 17 is in a channel with a gate called Gate 62, which is all about detail and the naming of things. And together they bring the qualities of being organized. This channel is actually called Acceptance, a design of an organizational being. This is the gate of the right eye. You might remember when we looked at gate 22 a little while ago, that was the gate of the left ear. So we have all of the biological correspondences that go through the body graph as well. The right eye sees clearly in the now. It sees detail, which is really useful for experimenting. It looks for the patterns, and it looks for the flaws in the patterns, and it looks for the correct pattern that can then be projected into the future. And then the species can continue. It will prosper because we have this logical framework around us. The understanding circuit, which is what this is part of, logical, it's called understanding circuit, it demands proof, it wants validity. And so opinions in that sense must have a truly logical foundation in order to be resilient when they're faced with criticism and constant testing. This circuit can be really critical, which is good. Criticism plays its part. It's no use if we start saying that we're sure about a theory that has never been tested, because that's a really vulnerable place to be. And the logical circuitry does not really want to be vulnerable. It wants to be sure of itself, And it's also good to keep in mind that our opinions are only that. They are our opinions. And whether they're logical or not, it doesn't necessarily follow that they're going to be correct. Facts can be used in all kinds of ways. We are, as a species, we're masters of manipulating data. Lies are regularly offered as truth. They're regularly given to us as a formula that we can rely on. So it's really important to remember that human fallibility comes into that. Just because we believe something doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it a fact. When you look at the body graph and you look at the way that it functions, you can see that it's not by accident that doubts get generated in the 63, as in which way it goes, in the 63. And that these are answered, these doubts and questions are answered in gate 4, and that they're then passed into the opinions of gate 17. And that when you look at it, they have no voice. Unless gate 17 is hooked up to the 62 and makes that channel down to the throat, there's no voice here. And that means there's no way of expressing opinions unless there is that hook into the throat. They're not meant to be. It's a process that happens up here, if you like. So they don't reach the throat, and there's also no motor around here. And this tells us that really these opinions and all of these questions and doubts, we don't have to do anything with them. They're just part of the process. They're just here. Action is not part of this mental process. Having our opinions is one thing. We just sometimes do need to remember that we are not supposed to do anything with them. There might, of course, be an activation that will bring it into the throat, or there might be somebody in our aura that will bring us a motor, bring us a hook up to a motor and then invite us, because this is a projected gate in a projected channel, that will invite us to share our opinions and our detail, and that will then help us to express that in a way that it will be listened to by the collective. This gate has a lovely description to it. It says, the ancient law that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. As a totality, we are here to serve each other. As we have to, in order to rule as an awareness over everything, we have to understand that it is not possible for us to do that until we know how to serve each other. The 17th gate in this logical circuitry tells us that the logical process actually unifies all of life. And it is only out of logic that we can find security, that we can find a common recognition and an awareness. Logic can be wrong, of course. Even the most perfect logical system can fall apart when a mutation comes into the experience. Logic might unify us, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to save us. One of the most important things about logic is that it has to be tested. It has to be experimented with. Constantly, this process goes on and on. You never really find a point where it's finished, where the science is settled, you could say. It doesn't happen. The pattern must be consistently examined. Flaws must be picked out. It must be refined. It's a common way of understanding. this world that we live in. It's a way that we can relate to each other. And when we're aware of this process, when a real mutation comes along, and it's getting very close now to the point where a real mutation is going to hit us, we'll be able to deal with that because we will actually be a unified totality. Now, the grounding force to gate 17 is the 18th gate, which you can see here in the red circle. This is in the splenic center. So we're staying in logical circuitry here in the splenic center. And we find ourselves in the gate of correction and in the channel of judgment. Remember that one. The gate of correction is also called working on what has been spoiled. So you can see how that ties in with everything we've just been talking about with the 17th gate. You can also see that the 17th gate is opposite the 18th gate in the wheel. You know, this is a polarity. This is what we call the polarity. They do have a very deep link to each other. You know, they are, of course, both within logical circuitry. And when you have an opinion of something, it's only natural that it's going to be judged in this channel of judgment. Someone out there is going to call you out on it, and it might need to be corrected. So there is this deep link. It's a capacity of what it means for us to go forward into the future. Well, it's really interesting when you start looking at how all of these things work together and what the actual mechanic of it all is, because it's not personal. It's not personal. Ra says that his teaching of human design, he says that it's not for our time. It's for a time that is coming. It is a planting of a seed, he said. It's that getting people to recognize that this kind of knowledge can be available to everyone. And it's the nature of this knowledge to get people organized, to get humanity organized now, to realize that there is a logical system that can be put in place and that can help humanity as it goes forward into the future. And that it will become a natural process to follow this system. You know, education begins with belief and a true knowledge that logic and understanding of the nature of what it means to be human is so important. It gives you that foundation to know your place in the world, to know where it is that you belong. Human design is logical and it is organized, really, in many ways, you know, but it's not for this time that we're living in now. We are learning it so that we can pass it on. And it's very useful in our own lives, without a doubt. In fact, having it in our own lives now and experimenting with it now means that we are validating it so that when it comes to passing it on as a system for the future, it has already got that validation behind it. But really, we are learning it so that we can pass it on to those who are going to come after us, because they're the ones who will be living through the new times. And they'll be the ones who will need to know who they truly are and how to operate in this world. It's for the parents who are bringing up children who are going to be living in this new world. Ra always said that human design was for the children. It's not for us. And a child who is brought into this world in a family who understands human design, that child doesn't have anything like the amount of conditioning to work through that we have. That's going to be an incredible thing. Already I see it in families where the child is being brought up according to their design, and it's quite remarkable to watch. So there will come a time when everybody will be able to see where they fit in. There will. This is part of the evolution that we're going through, it might not happen until the very end. I mean, it's probably isn't going to happen tomorrow that everyone is suddenly going to realize their place in the world and that they are a valuable being here, and the totality needs them simply because they are here. Oh, it might not be this time that we're living in now, but this knowledge, slowly but surely, is going to permeate out. It's not going to reach everybody, not even remotely. I think Ra said it was 4% of people. And 4% of the population of this world is not inconsiderable. But out of those 4% of people who may get this knowledge, may be introduced to it somehow, only 4% of them will decide to experiment with it and will think that it has a value to them. So eventually there'll be a time when people will be able to see exactly where they belong and who they belong with. And maybe there is a place there where once we value each other for the truth of who we are, because we know the truth of who we are, we can project that outwards. Wow, the whole nature of the world will change. I will leave you with those thoughts, and thank you for joining me for Gate 17. Enjoy your opinions this coming week, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.